Right, here's a guitar that is going to be a refinish. It's a Kiesel. I did not buy this guitar new. It's something I picked up off the internet. And I paid a little bit more than I should have for it. But I wanted a decent guitar. I had a hankering for some reason that I wanted to take a guitar and refinish it. And this was the most reasonably priced one that I could find for sale. Alright, so this is I can't remember what the model name is. Look up Kiesel, you'll see what it is. The wood on the top is black limba. So as you can see, it's got different coloring. There's some darker streaks in it and lighter streaks in it, which is a challenge when you come to put finish on it. Or a stain, I should say, to try and get it to even out. If I remember correctly, this is called Pale Moon Ebony. It's got some nice figuring to it and some good coloring. Kind of from a dark to a caramel. Now we're going to look at the body a little closer so you can kind of get a closer look at what that grain looks like. The limba is kind of porous to a certain degree, and that makes it another tricky thing to make sure you get the stain on correctly. And you flip it over, and the back side is swamp ash. Same way with the front, where you saw where it was that really light color. That's swamp ash also. And once again, get a look at some of the grain. And this is a very porous wood. This has been sanded down the whole guitar with 150 and then 400 to finish it up, just to smooth it out, take some of the roughness out so I don't have marks in it. I did not use an oval sander. This is all a flat sander, so there's no swirl marks in it. You just keep following the grain. Now here's some sanding sealer that I used, and wood filler. I do not recommend using this sanding sealer that's here. It's like an epoxy putty where you got to mix it together, and it's gets hard in 5 minutes, so you really got to get going. And I had to smear it on by hand and then wipe it off with a putty knife, and it gets really hard. It was easy to sand, but I wouldn't use it. I just used it on the back side. Okay, so here we are with the front side of the guitar that's been some finish on it. I got some color. This is stuff that I've had later that I was going to use for this project. Actually, now that I think about it, I've had this guitar for a couple of years now and stripped it, and then it's just been sitting around. So I decided to get to it. We are looking at it, and as you can see, I tried to use some different kind of staining ideas here. This is kind of a project to learn on, to try different ideas, so as I progress in my bodybuilding of guitars, that I can kind of have an idea how some colors will blend together to make sure they don't intermix as you're putting it on. What's going to happen, what happens with the finish. I had to sand this guitar 3 times. Twice I had to strip it all the way down and take everything off because of different problems. I was a little careless putting some stain on it, and I ended up splashing the stain in areas that I didn't want, so I had to strip it off with that. And then the other time I used I got impatient with the finish. I was putting some satin on, and I sprayed too many layers in a row in a too short of a period, and it put some air bubbles into the finish. While trying to sand the air bubbles out, I ended up sanding through, hitting the wood underneath, and as soon as you get the wood underneath to show, you've got to start all over. You got to strip it all off. There's no way to fix it. It was my fault for being impatient. So I stripped it completely all off on the face side. The back side I didn't strip down except for once. And that's where I spilt the stain, and it bled over to the front side. There was so much that fell on the back side of the guitar that actually ran onto the front side of the guitar. Once again, being stupid, not being careful, being a little impatient, that's what happens. Learn by doing is the way I do things. Even though I've had 50 years of finish experience, I've never done a guitar before. Okay, so now this is what's on the front side of the guitar now, as you see it. I had this for this project, so I decided to use it just on the front side. The back side was good. I wasn't going to touch it with the satin. Since I had to strip the front, this is what I decided to use on this. I didn't want gloss too much. I put just enough coats on it that it coats the front of the guitar, but I didn't want it super shiny. I didn't want to buff it down or anything. So it's as good as you can get with spray can products, let's put it that way. Now here's the back side. Now as you see on the back side, you can see where I used a little bit of orange right in the middle. That's what that lighter color is. I put some orange in the middle, and as I was putting the orange on, I held the dye bottle, this is dye not stain, over the back of the guitar, figuring, okay, I'll be real careful as I pour it out. Well, I wasn't that careful. More came out of the bottle than I intended. It splashed all over the backside, and it ran around the edges and got on the front side of the guitar. And if you've ever done any staining and you get these blotchy spots in it, you're done for. So once again, the only way to do it would be strip the whole guitar down. And since I was going to use the same colors over again, I didn't really worry about too much about having a color in the pores. Plus I put some of the sanding sealer on. I put about 5 or 6 coats of sanding sealer. I'd put a coat or 2 on, and that was a brush on stuff, and then I would sand it flat with 400, well 150 first and then 400, and then I would put another couple coats on, and so on and so forth. So that helped protect the guitar to a certain extent too when I had to sand the stain back off. And then once I stripped it down, then I put some more sanding sealer on it and sanded it down a couple of times, and then restained it again. And once again, some more shots of the guitar. This time you're going to get some close-ups so you can kind of see how it goes. I really didn't want to fill in everything in the pores so it's completely flat. You will see some of the pores. Right there is a good shot of how it's porous. I wanted to leave it that way so the guitar could breathe a little bit. I didn't want to completely seal the guitar off like some do with a polyurethane. This is a lacquer that is on here, so it's not as it doesn't smother the guitar, let's put it that way, in my opinion. This way it'll let the guitar breathe a little bit. It's still got a little porous stuff. I don't mind having that little bit of roughness on the surface of the guitar because it's still pretty slick. And I put a few coats of this on. I put between, let's say, 8 and 10 layers, and I was really careful this time when I sprayed it on. I put thinner layers so I wouldn't get air bubbles in it, so I didn't have to try and sand it down. Flip it over and we'll look at how the satin came out. Once again, I tried to use a little bit of a kind of a sunburst-ish kind of look to it, so it had a little bit of character. This got a little blotchy on there. You can see like where the neck is, where I used a little bit of the darker stain on it. I used a dark brown and mixed it in with the rose color. And you can see where some of the grains sucked it up because I didn't fill it in completely with the sanding sealer. And that's what will happen is some spots will suck up the darker color more. And I was tired of sanding stuff down. So it was just like, okay, this is a project to learn by. Okay, as I said, this is just an experiment guitar that I can mess around with to try and get different ideas across. Like I said, try different things, find out where my personal shortcomings are. And so I don't make mistakes on guitars that have more expensive wood and take up a bunch of time. Okay, so here's the guitar with the, as you can see, it's got the bridge on and the strings on and the pickups in and all that all ready to go. Okay, I'll give you a better look at it here so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. Okay. Okay, let me flip the camera around here. There we go. There's a better look at it. I couldn't really get a good angle holding it the other way. Alright, so as you can see, it's all set up. And I had a little bit of electronic problems because the video that I made when I took this apart, I once again kind of rushed through it. And I had to look up how to wire up a 5-way switch with humbuckers. You normally don't have a 5-way switch with humbuckers. So, I eventually got it figured out. Okay, so let's go through the finish again here. As you can see, I kind of experimented with different shades here where we went kind of light. The rose color here comes through a little more and then it gets a little darker. Some of that's from the not putting in enough sanding sealer and stuff so it stays even. And right here I tried to experiment with trying to get just kind of something that would be an accent to come through. Okay, there is right here is the edge of the top. It's got a beveled angle that's kind of hard to see now, but right here you can see it better where the end grain comes through, and that's part of not putting enough sanding sealer or grain filler in. That's what ends up, because the end of the pores will suck up the stain more than the flatter parts. So once again, experience. You learn by doing. And what I first tried to do is I taped this off. It goes all the way along here, and then it kind of disappears in this area. And tried to use this as what's called a live binding edge, to where you see the natural color of the wood. Well, the bad thing with that is this, you can see this dark streak in here. Didn't really allow that effect to come through. So then I stained it, and that ended up just making it darker. So then I decided to take orange and go over the top of this, and that kind of lightened it up a little bit, but really didn't work very well, So then when I messed up the finish by spraying too many coats on it and had to sand it all off, I decided to give up that idea because it didn't work out very well. So I just went with staining this, and then this, where the swamp ash is right here, I just decided to use the rose color here. And then when I just kept adding dark brown to the rose color in a cup and kept mixing it to make it darker and darker so it could kind of slowly shade in. Well, once I got to this where it was a real dark, where there was a lot of dark brown in it compared to the rose color, to get it to blend in, I had to kind of, use it in, so it got a little bit darker than I wanted to in this area. I wanted to have it kind of a little lighter and then let it get a little darker. But by the time I tried to get it to blend in, it didn't come out exactly the same I wanted it to. So once again, one of those things you learn by doing, and I should have put more grain filler in it. And move on, learn by doing. Alright, so there's a look at the guitar. I wasn't really going to do this guitar, but I had hip replacement surgery, and I've been waiting for a neck to come in to get started on my prototype body that I got, and it hasn't come in yet. It got sent in from a different country, and I'm still waiting for the neck to get, so I decided to do this instead. So we'll go from here, and I'll do a little playing of it, and let's do that. Alright, no AC/DC finish that time. Alright, so as you notice, this is a 7-string. I just do not like the 7-string on here. I don't play 7 strings. This just happened to be a 7-string model. It was within my price range, so I bought it. And, if I sell it and somebody wants to use it as 7-string, why not? There's nothing wrong with it. It'll play all right. It just gets in my way of playing every time I keep hitting the upper string, and it throws me off. I'm used to just playing a 6-string. So anyway, like I said, as soon as I get my neck in for my next project, we're going to get going on a series of videos that I'm going to start out right from the beginning, show you more detail into how I figure out my template, what I decide to do with the neck pocket, and all this and that stuff. So stay tuned, and we'll move on with some more guitar building. Alright, you be cool. Peace.